of my son's wedding, which I paid for entirely, his new wife introduced me to her wealthy family. "This is the old fat pig we have to put up with," she announced, gesturing at me like I was something she'd scraped off her designer shoe. Her mother laughed, her aunts laughed, her cousins laughed. 300 guests heard every word. I stood there in my simple dress, holding my champagne, saying nothing. Then her father arrived late from a business meeting. He walked through the crowd, saw me, and went pale. "Wait," he stammered. Aren't you Margaret Chen, my new CEO?" The champagne glass slipped from my daughter-in-law's hand, shattered on the marble floor, and her perfect wedding day shattered right along with it. "Who I am. Let me tell you something about myself. I'm Margaret Chen, 58 years old, 5'3", 170 pounds, which, yes, makes me overweight by those ridiculous BMI standards everyone obsesses over. I have gray streaks in my black hair that I've never bothered to dye. I wear glasses. I prefer comfortable shoes over heels. I shop at Target and Costco. I drive a 7-year-old Honda Accord because it still runs perfectly, and I see no reason to replace something that works. I look like exactly what Vanessa Harrington thought I was, a frumpy, middle-aged woman of no particular importance, a nobody. The kind of person you can insult at a wedding reception because who's going to care? Who's going to stop you? Here's what Vanessa didn't know. I am the founder and CEO of Global Tech Solutions. Market valuation, $2.3 billion. Annual revenue, $800 to $90 million. Employees, $4,200 across 12 countries. Fortune 500 ranking, 487, up from 612 last year. I started this company 31 years ago in my garage with $3,000 in savings and a computer science degree from a state school nobody's ever heard of. I built it while raising a son alone after my husband died. I built it through recessions, through tech bubbles, through every obstacle the business world throws at women who dare to lead. I could buy the Harrington family's entire net worth as a rounding error, could purchase their company, their homes, their cars, their country club memberships, and still have enough left over to do it again 10 times. But I don't look wealthy, don't act wealthy, don't flaunt it, advertise it, or use it as a weapon against people I consider beneath me. That's the difference between old money arrogance and actually earning every dollar yourself. When you've been poor, when you've struggled, when you've eaten ramen for months because you couldn't afford real food, you never forget. You never become the person who looks down on others for having less. The Harringtons never learned that lesson. They inherited their status, married into more of it, and spent their lives convinced that wealth made them better than everyone else. It doesn't. Money is just money. Character is everything. And on my son's wedding day, the Harrington family showed me exactly what their character was worth. My son, Derek is my only child. He's 32 years old now, tall, handsome, brilliant in that quiet way that doesn't need to announce itself. He got his father's looks, and my stubbornness, his father's kindness, and my work ethic. He's the best thing I ever created, better than any company, any deal, any success. His father was James Chen. We met in college. He was studying engineering. I was studying computer science. We were both scholarship kids, both working part-time jobs to afford textbooks, both completely invisible to the wealthy students who dominated campus social life. We fell in love over late-night study sessions and cheap pizza. Got married 6 months after graduation in a courthouse ceremony because we couldn't afford a real wedding. Started our lives together in a 1-bedroom apartment with furniture from garage sales and dreams bigger than our bank account. James supported me when I wanted to start my own company. He believed in me when nobody else did. He worked double shifts at his engineering firm so I could take a smaller salary those first brutal years when global tech was barely surviving. He died when Derek was 12, pancreatic cancer, 3 months from diagnosis to funeral. The fastest, cruelest thing I've ever witnessed. I almost gave up then, almost sold the company, took whatever I could get, and retreated into grief. But Derek needed me, needed stability, normalcy, a mother who kept functioning even when she wanted to collapse. So I functioned, built global tech into what it is today while raising my son, attending his baseball games, helping with homework, being present in a way that most CEOs never manage. I refused to sacrifice my child for my company. Found ways to do both, even when it meant sleeping 4 hours a night for years at a time. Derek grew up knowing we were wealthy, but not living wealthy. I made sure of that. He went to public school, had chores and a part-time job in high school, paid for his own car insurance, understood that money was a tool, not an identity. When he graduated from Stanford, yes, he got in on his own merits. I refused to donate a building. He told me he didn't want to work at Global Tech, didn't want people assuming he'd gotten there because of mommy, wanted to build his own career, earn his own success, be his own person. I was so proud, I cried. He took a job at a tech startup in Austin, worked his way up from junior developer to project manager to VP of engineering in 7 years, built his reputation on talent, not connections, made friends who had no idea his mother was a billionaire, including Vanessa. Meeting Vanessa. Derek met Vanessa Harrington at a charity gala in Austin 18 months before the wedding. She was there representing her father's company, Harrington Industries, a mid-sized manufacturing firm that made industrial equipment. Profitable, but not spectacular. The kind of company that looks impressive to people who don't know the difference between $50 million and $5 billion. Derek told me about her on our weekly phone call. Mom, I met someone. She's different. Different. I should have paid more attention to that word. Her name's Vanessa. She's beautiful, smart, works in marketing for her father's company. She's got this confidence, this presence. When she walks into a room, everyone notices. I was happy for him. Derek had dated before, but nothing serious. Nothing that made him sound like this, excited, hopeful, alive in a way I hadn't heard since before his father died. When do I get to meet her? Soon, Mom, but... He hesitated. Can we keep the whole global tech thing quiet for now? I just want her to get to know me first, not the company, not the money, just me. I understood. I'd done the same thing when I was dating after James died. The few times I'd tried, before deciding I was better off alone. The moment men found out about global tech, everything changed. They stopped seeing Margaret and started seeing dollar signs. Of course, honey, whatever you need. So when I first met Vanessa, I was just Derek's mom. Just Margaret, a widow who worked in technology consulting. Technically true, if wildly understated. A woman who lived in a modest house in the suburbs of San Jose. Also true, though I owned several other properties I never mentioned. The first meeting was dinner at Derek's apartment in Austin. I flew in commercial, economy class, because I always do for personal travel. Took an Uber from the airport. Showed up in slacks and a nice blouse from Macy's, carrying a bottle of wine from Trader Joe's. Vanessa opened the door. She was stunning. I'll give her that. Tall, blonde, perfectly styled, in a way that probably required hours of professional help. Designer dress, designer shoes, designer smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Mrs. Chen, so lovely to finally meet you. She air-kissed my cheeks, European style, though I later learned she'd never actually been to Europe. Derek has told me so much about you. Please call me Margaret, and I hope he only told you the good parts." She laughed, polished, practiced, performed. "Oh, he's been very mysterious, actually. All I know is you work in technology and you raised him single-handedly after his father passed, which is so brave of you." Brave, the word people use when they mean unfortunate but admirable, in a pitiful sort of way. "I just did what needed to be done," I said. Any mother would. "Well." She looked me up and down, taking in my department store clothes, my sensible shoes, my complete lack of jewelry beyond my wedding ring. "Not every mother, I'm sure." That was my first warning sign. The subtle condescension, the implication that I was somehow less than. But I ignored it because Derek was happy, because first meetings are awkward, because I wanted to give her a chance. I gave her too many chances. The Harrington family. Over the next year, I learned everything about the Harringtons. Some through Derek, some through my own research. I didn't become a successful CEO without learning to investigate potential business partners, and a daughter-in-law is absolutely a partner in the business of family. William Harrington, Vanessa's father, 62 years old, CEO of Harrington Industries, a company his grandfather started in the 1940s, revenue around $120 million annually, profitable but stagnant. No innovation, no growth strategy, no vision beyond maintaining what previous generations built. William was a classic second-generation wealth manager, competent enough not to destroy what he'd inherited, but lacking the drive to build anything new. He attended all the right schools, joined all the right clubs, married the right woman, and spent his life checking boxes. Victoria Harrington, William's wife, Vanessa's mother, 59 years old, former debutante, current professional society woman. Her job was maintaining the family's social status through charity galas, country club memberships, and strategic friendships with other wealthy families. Victoria had never worked a day in her life, never needed to. Her family had money, not Harrington-level money, but enough that she'd grown up with maids in private schools. She viewed people without generational wealth the way one might view an interesting zoo exhibit. Curious, perhaps, but certainly not equal. Vanessa, 29 years old, Stanford MBA, the only similarity between her education and Derek's, which was probably how they'd initially connected, marketing director at her father's company, a position she'd been handed rather than earned, beautiful, ambitious, and utterly convinced that her family's status entitled her to the best of everything. The Harringtons weren't truly wealthy by my standards. Their net worth was maybe $30 under $40 million, mostly tied up in the company and real estate. Comfortable, certainly, rich by any normal measure, but they acted like old money aristocracy, like they were Rockefellers or Vanderbilts rather than a family that manufactured industrial valves. This acting was important. They needed to feel superior, needed to look down on others to feel good about themselves. And when Derek brought home a mother who dressed like a middle school teacher and drove a Honda, they found the perfect target for their contempt. The engagement Derek proposed to Vanessa on a beach in Cabo San Lucas. Sunset, private dinner, the whole romantic package. He called me afterward, voice shaking with excitement. She said, "Yes, Mom, we're getting married. Congratulations, honey. I'm so happy for you." I wasn't. Not entirely. Something about Vanessa had never sat right with me, though I couldn't articulate exactly what. The way she talked about money, the way she dropped brand names into conversation, the way she seemed more interested in Derek's career trajectory than in Derek himself. But I kept my concerns to myself. Derek was a grown man. He'd made his choice. My job was to support him, not to undermine his happiness with suspicions I couldn't prove. We're thinking June wedding, maybe at the Harrington estate in Connecticut. Vanessa's always dreamed of getting married there. That sounds lovely. It sounded expensive. It sounded like the Harringtons were already taking control. Whatever you want, Derek. I'm here to help however I can. Actually, he paused. Long pause. The kind that means something difficult is coming. Vanessa and her mom want to handle most of the planning. They have very specific ideas about how it should look. Would you be okay with that? Being excluded from planning my only son's wedding? No, I would not be okay with that. Of course, I said. They probably have much better taste than I do anyway. Thanks, Mom. You're the best. And we're still keeping the global tech thing quiet, right? Vanessa's family is kind of traditional about status and money. I don't want things to get weird. Weird. That was one word for it. Your secret is safe with me, honey. I should have told him right then. Should have said, if she can't love you without knowing about the money, she doesn't really love you at all. If her family's reaction would change based on your net worth, they're not the kind of people you want to marry into. But I didn't, because I wanted him to figure it out himself, because I was already planning, already preparing, already documenting everything in case this wedding ended exactly how I suspected it would. Meeting the in-laws, the formal meet the family's dinner, happened 3 months after the engagement. The Harringtons flew us out to their Connecticut estate, first-class tickets for everyone, courtesy of Harrington Industries. A gesture meant to establish dominance, to show us how the real wealthy live. I flew first class too, in the seat they'd booked for me, accepting their hospitality while knowing I could have bought the airline itself if I'd wanted to. The estate was impressive, I'll admit. 20-acre property with a colonial mansion, tennis courts, pool, gardens maintained by full-time staff. The kind of place that photographs well for society magazines, which was probably the point. Victoria Harrington greeted us at the door. Silk dress, pearl necklace, hair professionally styled into an elegant updo. She looked at me like one might look at a stray cat that had wandered onto the property. Margaret, welcome to Harrington House. We're so pleased you could make it. Thank you for having me. Your home is beautiful. It's been in William's family for 4 generations. Pre-revolutionary, actually. George Washington slept here once. She said this like it was her personal accomplishment rather than something that had happened 2 centuries before her birth. Fascinating. Let me show you to your room. I hope you don't mind. We've put you in the East Wing. It's a bit smaller than the main guest suites, but I thought you might be more comfortable somewhere. Cozier. Cozier. Translation: the help's quarters. But I smiled and nodded and followed her through endless hallways full of portraits and antiques and the accumulated wealth of generations who'd never had to work for any of it. My room was fine, small but clean. The view was of the service entrance and the staff parking lot. I'm sure that was a coincidence. Dinner that evening was educational. We gathered in the formal dining room, a space larger than my first apartment, with a table that seated 20, though only 6 of us were there. William at one end, Victoria at the other. Derek and Vanessa on one side, me alone on the opposite side, feeling like a defendant facing a tribunal. So, Margaret, William swirled his wine, a vintage that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. Derek tells us you work in technology consulting. That's right. I've been in the industry for about 30 years. How interesting. My company has been exploring some technology initiatives. Perhaps you could give us some advice. He said it like I might suggest good plumbers or lawn care services. Helpful, but insignificant. I'd be happy to discuss it sometime. Dad, Vanessa interrupted. Margaret's company is quite small. I don't think they handle anything on Harrington Industries' scale. She didn't know anything about my company. She'd never asked. She'd just assumed. I see. William's interest evaporated instantly. Well, it's admirable that you've managed to support yourself all these years. Being a single mother must have been challenging. It had its moments. I can only imagine. Victoria shook her head with performative sympathy. Raising a child alone, without family money to fall back on. You must have made so many sacrifices. Derek was worth every sacrifice. Of course he was. He's turned out surprisingly well, all things considered. Surprisingly well, all things considered. The implications hung in the air like smoke. Derek, to his credit, looked uncomfortable. Mom's amazing, he said. She built her company from nothing. She's the hardest working person I know. How sweet, Vanessa patted his hand. Loyal to the end. That's one of the things I love about you, babe. Even when family is, she glanced at me, modest, you still defend them. I wanted to tell her exactly how modest I was, wanted to pull up my bank statements and watch her jaw drop, but I didn't, because Derek had asked me not to, because I wanted to see how far she'd go, because I was already documenting, already planning, already preparing. Family is everything, I said simply. Blood is thicker than water. Is it, though? Victoria laughed. I've always found that's something poor people say to make themselves feel better about not having anything else. Derek opened his mouth to object, but I put my hand on his arm. Maybe, I said. Or maybe it's what people say when they've learned that money doesn't actually make you happy. Victoria's smile froze. William changed the subject to golf, and I spent the rest of dinner answering condescending questions about my little business, while planning exactly how I would handle these people when the time came. Wedding. Planning from hell. The next 9 months were an exercise in controlled humiliation. Victoria and Vanessa took over every aspect of wedding planning, as expected. What I hadn't expected was how thoroughly they would exclude me, while simultaneously demanding my involvement in the most degrading ways possible. Margaret, we need you at the dress fitting tomorrow. Not for input, obviously. Vanessa's already chosen everything. But we need someone to hold the trains while she walks. Margaret, the caterer, needs to discuss menu options. Victoria and I are too busy, but you can sit through the presentation and take notes for us. Margaret, we're touring venues this weekend. Someone needs to stay at the house and accept the flower delivery. I'm sure you won't mind. I did every task they assigned, held the trains, took the notes, waited for the flowers. I did it all with a smile because Derek asked me to, because the Harringtons are just particular about how things are done, because it'll all be worth it when we're married and they see how great you are. He didn't see what I saw, didn't hear the comments they made when he wasn't around. Poor thing, she's trying. Victoria to her sister, when I wore a dress I thought was appropriate for a planning lunch. Can you imagine having her as your mother-in-law? Thank God Derek has enough money for us to keep her at a distance. Vanessa to her cousin, not realizing I was in the next room. She's like a little lost puppy, isn't she? Following us around, desperate for approval. Pathetic. Victoria to William, who laughed and agreed. I documented everything. Every slight, every insult, every moment of cruelty they thought I couldn't hear or wouldn't remember. I had a folder on my laptop labeled Harrington Documentation. Videos, audio recordings, screenshots of text messages Vanessa had sent to friends mocking Derek's peasant mother. One-party consent state. I knew the laws. I knew what I could use if I needed to. The money. Here's the part that still makes me laugh. Bitter laugh. Angry laugh. but laughed nonetheless. The Harringtons were adamant that the wedding be appropriate to their station. This meant the Waldorf Astoria Grand Ballroom. 300 guests, a dress that cost more than most cars, flowers flown in from Holland, a 12-piece orchestra, a 5-tier cake designed by some celebrity baker I'd never heard of. Total estimated cost, $400,000. William made a show of offering to split the costs with Derek's family. Traditional, he said. The bride's family pays for the wedding itself. The groom's family pays for the rehearsal dinner, honeymoon, and various incidentals. The incidentals were carefully defined to be minimal. The rehearsal dinner could be done cheaply. The honeymoon was already booked. Vanessa wanted the Maldives, and she expected it as a gift from her parents anyway. What they actually expected from me? Maybe $10,000. Maybe $20,000 if I was feeling generous. Enough that I could participate without actually mattering. I offered to pay for the entire wedding. That's very kind, Margaret. Victoria's smile was the smile of a cat watching a mouse attempt to escape. But I don't think you understand what we're planning. This isn't going to be a backyard barbecue. I understand completely. I'd like to pay for everything. The venue, the catering, the flowers, all of it. Consider it my gift to Derek and Vanessa. That's very generous. William looked uncomfortable. Rich people hate being outgifted. But we couldn't possibly accept. I insist. Derek is my only child. I've been saving for this his entire life. Not technically a lie. I had been saving for his entire life. The savings just happened to compound rather significantly when you're making $50 million a year. They accepted, eventually. Couldn't really refuse without revealing their own financial concerns. Harrington Industries wasn't doing as well as they pretended, and $400,000 was a significant hit to their liquidity. I paid for everything through a family trust fund. No name attached, no way to trace it back to Global Tech. Just anonymous generosity from Derek's side of the family. They took the money and continued treating me like the help. Victoria would call me weekly with updates that were really just opportunities to remind me how little I understood about real elegance. We've upgraded to the premium bar package, Margaret. I hope that's not a problem. I know money is probably tight for you, but we simply can't serve well vodka at a Harrington wedding. Whatever you need, Victoria. And the flowers. We've decided to go with the orchid arrangement instead of roses. It's only an extra $15,000, but the visual impact is so much more sophisticated. That sounds lovely. You're being such a good sport about all this. I know it must be difficult, watching us spend money you probably can't really afford. But don't worry. I'm sure Derek will pay you back someday, when he's more established. I smiled, nodded, made the payment, added another entry to my documentation folder, $400,000, plus tips for staff, plus emergency expenses, plus the upgrades Victoria kept adding. Final cost, $437,892, a rounding error in my annual bonus. But to the Harringtons, proof that I was financially stretching myself to the breaking point. They thought they were taking advantage of a desperate woman, trying to buy her way into their family's good graces. They had no idea who they were dealing with. The acquisition. 3 months before the wedding, something unexpected happened. Actually, that's not true. It wasn't unexpected at all. I'd been planning it for over a year. Harrington Industries had been struggling. Their technology was outdated, their processes inefficient, their market share eroding to competitors who'd actually innovated in the past decade. William was a competent manager but a terrible strategist, and the company his grandfather built was slowly dying under his leadership. They needed capital, needed modernization, needed someone to save them from themselves. I arranged for Global Tech to acquire Harrington Industries, not directly. That would have raised too many questions. I worked through a subsidiary, a holding company, layers of corporate structure designed to obscure the real owner. The offer came from Tech Forward Holdings, a name generic enough to mean nothing. William was thrilled. The acquisition would provide capital, technology partnerships, and, most importantly, would let him keep his CEO title while someone else handled the actual hard work of running a company. He signed the papers 6 weeks before his daughter's wedding, celebrated with champagne and self-congratulation about his strategic vision in finding such an ideal partner. He had no idea that Tech Forward Holdings was a wholly owned subsidiary of Global Tech Solutions. No idea that his new parent company was run by the woman he'd been mocking at dinner parties for the past year. No idea that the frumpy little consultant was now, technically, his boss's boss's boss. The final paperwork, including the public announcement, was scheduled for the week after the wedding. A deliberate choice. I wanted to see how they treated me when they still thought I was nobody. Wanted to give them every opportunity to show me who they really were. They did not disappoint. The rehearsal dinner. The night before the wedding, we gathered at an upscale restaurant in Manhattan for the rehearsal dinner. 50 people, close family, and the wedding party. I paid for this too, of course, though the Harringtons had graciously allowed me to host it. Victoria had chosen the restaurant, had designed the seating chart that put me at the far end of the table, surrounded by Harrington cousins I'd never met, who looked at me with barely concealed disdain. The toasts were revealing. William went first. To Derek and Vanessa. My daughter has found a man worthy of her in every way. Smart, ambitious, with a bright future ahead of him. We welcomed Derek into the Harrington family with open arms. No mention of me. No acknowledgement that Derek had a family of his own. Victoria's toast was worse. To the beautiful couple. Vanessa, you've always known exactly what you wanted, and I'm so proud that you found it. Derek, you're a lucky man. I hope you spend your life making sure my daughter has everything she deserves. Everything she deserves. The implication being that Derek should be grateful for the opportunity to serve Vanessa's needs. Vanessa's maid of honor, her college roommate Brittany, gave a speech that was supposedly about the couple but was actually a 20-minute humble brag about the Harrington family's social status. Vanessa and I used to dream about our wedding days. We knew they'd be amazing because, we're U.S. Laughter from the Harrington side. And look at this. The Waldorf, A-list everything. Derek, you really upgraded her dreams. She was just going to marry rich, but she married rich and hot. More laughter. I saw Derek wince slightly, though he tried to hide it. Finally, it was my turn. The mother of the groom's toast. I'd prepared remarks, nice, safe, congratulatory. But standing there, looking at these people who'd spent a year treating me like garbage while spending my money, I changed my approach. I want to tell you all a story about Derek, I began. When he was 12 years old, his father died. It was the hardest thing either of us had ever faced. I thought about giving up work, giving up trying, giving up everything. The room went quiet. Death makes people uncomfortable, especially at celebrations. But Derek came to me one night, 3 weeks after the funeral. He was supposed to be asleep, but he found me crying in the kitchen at 2 a.m. You know what he said? I looked at my son, who was watching me with tears in his eyes. He said, Mom, we're going to be okay. We have each other. That's all we need. Everything else we can figure out together. Derek was openly crying now. Vanessa looked irritated that attention was being diverted from her. Derek has that gift, the ability to see what really matters, people over things, love over status, character over appearance. I paused. I hope everyone in his new family appreciates that gift, appreciates him for who he is, not what they think he can give them. I raised my glass. To Derek and Vanessa, may you build a marriage based on honesty, respect, and unconditional love. May you treat each other and each other's families with the kindness you'd want for yourselves. It was pointed. Everyone heard the subtext. Victoria's smile was frozen. Vanessa looked like she'd swallowed something sour. Derek came to hug me afterward. Thank you, Mom. That was beautiful. I meant every word, honey. I did. I just meant it as warning as much as blessing. Wedding morning. The day of the wedding, I woke up at 5 a.m., couldn't sleep. Too much anticipation, too many emotions, too much knowledge of what was coming. I'd received confirmation the night before. William Harrington's official orientation with his new parent company was scheduled for Monday morning. He'd be meeting the global tech executive team, including, surprise, the CEO herself. But that was Monday. Today was Saturday. Today was the wedding. Today I was still just Margaret Chen, struggling consultant, frumpy widow, embarrassing mother-in-law. I'd chosen my dress carefully, nice but not expensive looking, appropriate mother-of-the-groom attire, nothing that would upstage the bride, nothing that would give Victoria ammunition to criticize, nothing that would hint at the truth. The ceremony was scheduled for 4 p.m. at a historic church in Manhattan, followed by a reception at the Waldorf. Between now and then, hours of photographs, preparations, controlled chaos. I wasn't invited to the bridal suite. Vanessa had made that clear. It's just going to be my girls and my mom, Margaret. I'm sure you understand. Too many people makes things stressful. I understood perfectly. I spent the morning in my hotel room, reviewing documents, answering work emails, preparing for Monday's revelation, in a way the Harringtons couldn't imagine. At noon, Derek called. Mom, can you come to my room? I need to talk to you. He sounded nervous, anxious. I went immediately. Derek was in his tuxedo, looking handsome and terrified. He was pacing by the window, running his hands through his hair in that way he'd done since childhood when something was wrong. Honey, what is it? I'm having second thoughts. I sat down slowly. About the wedding? About everything. He turned to face me. I've been hearing things. Things Vanessa says when she doesn't think I'm listening. Things her family says about you, about me, about what they think they're getting out of this marriage. What kind of things? She called you a charity case yesterday. Said she couldn't wait until we were married and she could finally put your mother in her place. Her mother agreed. They were laughing about how they'd make sure you weren't invited to holidays because you'd lower the tone. My heart broke for him, not for me. I'd known exactly who these people were for months. But for Derek, who'd wanted so badly to believe in love, who tried so hard to see the best in his fiancée. I'm sorry, honey. Why didn't you tell me? You must have known. Must have seen how they treated you. I wanted you to figure it out yourself. I didn't want to be the mother who ruins her son's relationship because she doesn't approve. You should have said something. Would you have believed me before you heard it yourself? He was quiet for a long moment. Maybe not. Probably not. I wanted so badly for it to work. I know. What do I do, Mom? The wedding is in 4 hours. 300 people are coming. We've spent. He didn't know. Still didn't know that I'd paid for everything. Still didn't know about the acquisition, about global tech, about any of it. How much do you love her? I asked. Not how much you want to love her. Not how much you love the idea of her. But her, the real Vanessa, the one who laughs at your mother and talks about putting me in my place. He sat down heavily. I don't know anymore. I thought I knew her. Thought she was strong and confident and sure of herself. But now I'm wondering if that confidence was just cruelty dressed up in designer clothes. Then you have a choice to make. Walk out there and marry someone who might make you miserable, or walk away and face the consequences, the embarrassment, the money wasted, the Harringtons' reaction. Yes, all of that. What would you do? I took his hands. Derek, I would rather have you single and happy than married and miserable. I would rather face any embarrassment, any consequence, any Harrington tantrum, than watch you bind yourself to someone who doesn't truly love you. But the money. Don't worry about the money. That's my problem, not yours. He looked at me with something like hope. You really mean that? I really mean that. Whatever you decide, I support you. If you want to walk out there and marry her, I'll smile and throw rice and pretend everything is fine. If you want to leave, I'll take you to the airport myself, and we'll be in California before anyone figures out what happened. He thought for a long moment. Then, I think I need to see this through. I need to know. I need to give her one more chance to show me who she really is. Then that's what we'll do. But Mom, if she shows me who she is, and it's what I'm afraid of, will you help me? Always, honey. Always. The ceremony. The church was beautiful. Historic stone, stained glass, flowers covering every surface. 300 guests in their finest attire, waiting to witness the union of Derek Chen and Vanessa Harrington. I sat in the front row on the groom's side, alone. My +1 would have been my late husband, and I'd never replaced him. The Harrington side was packed. Relatives, friends, business associates, society connections. My side had Derek's college friends, his colleagues from work, and a sparse collection of distant relatives I barely knew. The imbalance was obvious and intentional, another way for the Harringtons to demonstrate their superiority. Vanessa walked down the aisle on her father's arm. She was radiant. I'll give her that. The dress was stunning, her hair and makeup perfect, her smile exactly what the photographers wanted. William beamed with pride. This was his moment, too. His daughter marrying well, his family legacy continuing, his status confirmed. As Vanessa reached the altar, she glanced at me. Just for a second, just long enough for me to see the contempt in her eyes, quickly masked by her practiced smile. She thought she'd won, thought she was about to become Mrs. Derek Chen, with all the upper-middle-class status that implied. Thought she'd gotten exactly what she wanted, a handsome, successful husband who would worship her while she laughed at his poor mother behind his back. The ceremony proceeded. Vows were exchanged. Rings were given. The minister pronounced them husband and wife. Derek kissed his bride, and 300 people applauded. I applauded too. Whatever came next, this was still my son's wedding day. I would not ruin it with public drama. Not yet. The reception, the Waldorf Grand Ballroom, was everything Victoria had promised. Opulent, elegant, impressive to exactly the kind of people who were impressed by such things. Crystal chandeliers, white roses, a 12-piece orchestra playing classical music during cocktail hour. $437,992. Every cent paid by the woman they'd seated at table 17, in the back corner, near the service entrance. I didn't complain about the seating, didn't make a scene about being hidden away like an embarrassing relative. I sat at my assigned table with Derek's college roommate and his wife, making pleasant conversation about neutral topics. The roommate, Michael, seemed uncomfortable. "Mrs. Chen, I'm sorry you're stuck back here. This doesn't seem right." "It's fine, Michael. The important thing is that Derek and Vanessa have a beautiful day." "Yeah, but," he lowered his voice, "between you and me, Vanessa's kind of a nightmare. Derek could do so much better." I smiled. "He's an adult. He makes his own choices. You're a better person than me. If someone treated my mom like this, I'd lose it." The evening progressed. Dinner was served, prime rib, lobster, all the expensive options Victoria had insisted upon. Speeches were given, each one more self-congratulatory than the last. Then came the moment I'd been waiting for. Vanessa stood up, champagne glass in hand, to give her thank you speech to the guests. She was glowing, confident, queen of her domain. "First, I want to thank everyone for being here to celebrate our love. Derek and I are so blessed to be surrounded by such amazing people." Applause. "I especially want to thank my parents, William and Victoria Harrington, for raising me to know my worth and never settle for less than I deserve." More applause. Victoria dabbed her eyes. "And of course I have to acknowledge Derek's mother, Margaret." Vanessa turned toward my table, her smile sharpening. "She's been so supportive throughout this process, even though she comes from simpler circumstances. She's done her best to keep up." Scattered, uncomfortable laughter. "In fact, I want to take this moment to introduce her to some of you who haven't met her yet. Margaret, could you stand up?" I stood, smiled politely. 300 faces turned toward me. "Everyone, this is Margaret Chen, Derek's mother, a technology consultant from California." The air quotes were audible. "We're so grateful she could be here, even though this probably isn't the kind of event she's used to." More uncomfortable shifting. Even some of the Harringtons looked embarrassed. Then Vanessa delivered the line that would haunt her for the rest of her life. "Mom, Dad, come over here. I want to properly introduce you to Derek's family." She gestured for her parents to join her, then pointed at me with her champagne glass. "Everyone, this is the old fat pig we have to put up with now. Welcome to the family, Margaret." She laughed. Victoria laughed. A few sycophants laughed nervously, unsure if this was supposed to be a joke. Derek stood up, face white. "Vanessa." "Oh, relax, babe, it's just a joke. Your mom knows I'm kidding." I didn't respond, just stood there, holding my water glass, face carefully neutral, letting everyone see, letting the moment hang. Victoria added fuel to the fire. She really has been so brave trying to fit in with her betters. We've all been very patient with her peculiarities. "Like her wardrobe," a Harrington cousin called out. "Did she get that dress from a thrift store?" "Or her car," another added. "I saw it in the parking garage, a Honda, at the Waldorf." The laughter grew louder, meaner. 300 people watching the Harrington family humiliate the mother of the groom at her own son's wedding. Derek was pushing his way toward me, face furious. But before he could reach me, before I could respond, before anything else could happen, the ballroom doors opened. William Harrington walked in. He'd been missing from the reception, some urgent business call he'd had to take. Now he was back, phone still in hand, face pale. "William," Victoria called out, "you're missing the fun. We were just introducing everyone to Margaret." William didn't respond. He was staring at me, staring like he'd seen a ghost. "William, what's wrong?" He walked toward me slowly. The room had gone quiet, sensing something was off. "Margaret," he said, voice barely above a whisper. "Margaret Chen?" "Yes? You're not. You can't be. He pulled out his phone, looked at something on the screen, then back at me. Holy shit! Victoria looked annoyed. William, what are you? Do you know who this is? William's voice cracked. Do any of you know who this actually is? Vanessa rolled her eyes. Derek's mother, the consultant. We just went over this. She's not a consultant. William was almost hyperventilating. She's Margaret Chen, the Margaret Chen, founder and CEO of Global Tech Solutions. Silence. Global Tech. Victoria looked confused. What does that have to do with? Global Tech just acquired our company, William shouted. The deal closed last month. She's my new boss. She's been my boss for weeks. The champagne glass slipped from Vanessa's hand, shattered on the marble floor. Nobody laughed. The revelation. The silence in the ballroom was absolute. 300 people frozen in place, trying to process what they'd just heard. Vanessa's face had gone from confident to confused to terrified in the span of about 5 seconds. That's not possible. Derek's mother is a consultant. She drives a Honda. I do drive a Honda, I said calmly. Very reliable cars. And I am a consultant. I consult on business strategy, technology integration, and corporate leadership. I just happen to do it from the CEO's office of a $2.3 billion company. Victoria's mouth was opening and closing like a fish. But you paid for the wedding from a trust fund. You said it was family money. It is family money. My family, my company, my money. How much? William looked like he might faint. How much are you actually worth? Personally, my shares in Global Tech are worth approximately $1.8 billion. Add in real estate, other investments, and liquid assets. Let's call it an even $2 billion. The number landed like a bomb. 2 billion? Victoria's voice was a screech. That's impossible. You dress like a school teacher. You wear glasses from Costco. I also give away about $50 million a year to charity, serve on the boards of 3 foundations, and have been named to Forbes' list of self-made billionaires for the past 7 years. I straighten my thrift store dress. I just don't feel the need to advertise it to people who only value others based on what they own. Derek had reached me by then. He was staring at me with something between shock and admiration. Mom, why didn't you ever tell me? You asked me not to. You wanted Vanessa to love you for you, not for your money. I respected that. I put my hand on his arm. I'm sorry, honey. I should have told you sooner, should have told you everything. You paid for this whole wedding. Yes, the $400,000. That wasn't your life savings. Derek, I spent more than that on the company Christmas party last year. He started laughing, slightly hysterical laughter, the kind that happens when reality inverts itself too quickly. Oh my God, this whole time the Harringtons were mocking the woman who could buy their company with her annual bonus. I looked at William, which, incidentally, I did. Tech Forward Holdings is a subsidiary of Global Tech. You signed the acquisition papers yourself. William sat down heavily in the nearest chair. His face had gone from pale to gray. You bought us? Vanessa's voice was shaking. You bought my father's company. I didn't buy it because of you. I bought it because it was a good strategic acquisition. Your company's manufacturing expertise complements our technology division. The fact that it came with a bonus front row seat to your family's character was just serendipity. Victoria stepped forward, her face contorting through several emotions before settling on desperate charm. Margaret, dear, you have to understand, we didn't know. We never would have treated you like this if we'd known who you really were. I know, that's exactly the problem. What? You're not apologizing for being cruel. You're apologizing for being cruel to someone who turned out to be rich. If I were a struggling consultant, if I were exactly what you thought I was, everything you did would have been perfectly fine in your eyes. Victoria opened her mouth to argue, found nothing to say, and closed it again. The measure of a person's character isn't how they treat people above them on the social ladder. It's how they treat people below them, people who can't fight back, people who can't hurt them. I looked around the room. 300 guests, many of them Harrington friends and associates, were staring at me with varying expressions of shock, embarrassment, and, in some cases, satisfaction. Not everyone liked the Harringtons, apparently. You called me a pig, fat, old, pathetic. You laughed at my clothes, my car, my simple circumstances. You seated me by the kitchen. You excluded me from every aspect of my own son's wedding. You took $437,892 of my money and mocked me for not being able to afford real elegance. I picked up my water glass and took a sip. Perfectly calm. And the worst part? You did it all in front of my son. You humiliated me while Derek watched, thinking he couldn't defend me because you were his new family. Derek's face crumbled. Mom, I'm so sorry. I should have... You tried, honey, several times. They just didn't care. Vanessa was crying now. Perfect mascara running down perfect cheeks. Derek, I didn't mean it. I was just joking. I didn't know. That's exactly what my mother just said. Derek's voice was ice. You didn't know she was rich, so you thought it was fine to treat her like garbage. What does that say about you, Vanessa? What does that say about our marriage? We can work through this. I can change. I was just nervous because of the wedding. You called my mother a pig at our wedding, in front of everyone we know. I was joking. Were you joking when you told your mom you'd put her in her place after we were married? Were you joking when you said you couldn't wait to exclude her from holidays? Vanessa's tears stopped abruptly. You heard that? I heard everything. All those conversations you thought were private, I heard them. And I was an idiot for thinking you might be different when we were alone than when you were performing for your family. He pulled the wedding ring off his finger. Derek, no. This marriage is over. We'll figure out the annulment paperwork tomorrow. You can't do this. We just got married. Derek? But Derek wasn't listening anymore. He'd taken my arm and was walking me toward the door. Mom, let's get out of here. I let him lead me away. Behind us, I could hear Vanessa's sobs turning to screams, Victoria's voice rising in panic, the excited murmur of 300 guests witnessing the social collapse of the year. At the door, I paused, turned back. William. He looked up, face gray, eyes hollow. I'll see you Monday morning. We have a lot to discuss about Harrington Industries' new direction. Then Derek and I walked out of the Waldorf, leaving the wreckage of his wedding behind us. The aftermath. We took a car to my hotel. Not the room Victoria had assigned me, but a suite I'd booked separately under my company's account. Large enough to pace, private enough to process. Derek sat on the couch, still in his tuxedo, staring at nothing. I'm sorry, Mom. You have nothing to apologize for. I brought those people into your life. I made you hide who you were. I let them treat you like you trusted someone who didn't deserve it. That's not a crime. That's just love. I should have seen it earlier, should have listened when you tried to warn me. I never warned you. I probably should have, but I didn't. Why? You knew what they were. You must have known from the beginning. I sat down across from him. Because I wanted you to see it yourself, and because I wanted to see how bad it would get. I wanted to document everything. I wanted to be prepared. Prepared for what? for exactly what happened tonight, for the moment when they revealed themselves completely, with no possibility of pretending it was a misunderstanding. Derek stared at me. You planned this? I planned for every possibility. I hoped they'd be better than they were. I hoped Vanessa would reveal some hidden depth of character that would make me wrong about her. But I prepared for the alternative. The acquisition. You bought their company on purpose. I bought their company because it was a good deal. The timing was strategic. Jesus, Mom, he laughed weakly. You really are a CEO, aren't you? I'm a mother who protects her child. The CEO skills are just how I do it. We sat in silence for a while. Then Derek asked the question I'd been waiting for. Why didn't you ever tell me? About global tech, about the money, about any of it. I chose my words carefully. When you were growing up, I didn't want wealth to define you. I wanted you to earn things, appreciate things, understand that money is a tool and not an identity. When you went to Stanford, when you started your career, I didn't want anyone assuming you were there because of me. But once I was established, once you were established, you met Vanessa. You asked me to keep the secret. And by then, I sighed. By then, I was curious. I wanted to see what she was really like, what her family was really like. When people think you're nobody, they show you who they truly are. And they showed you. They showed me everything. Derek took off his tuxedo jacket, threw it over a chair. What happens now, with her family's company? That depends on William. He can stay on as CEO of the Harrington division. The acquisition papers guarantee him that role for 3 years. Or he can leave with a severance package and let me install new leadership. Do you think he'll stay? Would you, after tonight? Derek shook his head. I can't believe I almost married into that family. I can't believe I was so blind. Love makes us blind. Wanting love makes us blind. There's no shame in hoping for the best in people. But you didn't hope. You prepared. I've been in business for 30 years, Derek. I've seen what people do when they think they have power over you. The Harringtons aren't special. They're just rich enough to think they're better than everyone else, and stupid enough to show it. My phone buzzed, then buzzed again, and again. Dozens of notifications flooding in. Looks like word is getting out. Derek checked his own phone. Holy shit, it's everywhere. Someone recorded Vanessa's speech and the confrontation. I looked at the video playing on his screen. There I was, standing calmly, while Vanessa called me a pig. There was William recognizing me. There was the whole beautiful disaster, captured in high definition for the internet's entertainment. This is going to be a PR nightmare, Derek said. For them, maybe. For me, it's a story of resilience. Humble billionaire endures abuse from entitled family, maintains dignity throughout. I couldn't have written better press myself. Did you? Plan the video? No. That was just people with phones, but I won't pretend I'm unhappy about it. The fallout the next few days were chaos. The video went viral. Within 24 hours, it had 50 million views across various platforms. News outlets picked up the story. Billionaire CEO humiliated at son's wedding, then reveals she owns bride's family company. The public reaction was overwhelmingly in my favor. Comments flooded in supporting me, condemning the Harringtons, calling for boycotts of their company, which now belonged to me anyway. Victoria Harrington tried to do damage control. She gave an interview claiming the video was taken out of context, that she and Vanessa had a playful relationship with me, that I had overreacted to innocent family banter. No one believed her. Vanessa posted a tearful apology on Instagram. I was nervous about the wedding and made a terrible joke. I love Margaret like a mother. This has all been a horrible misunderstanding. The comments section tore her apart. William called me Monday morning as scheduled. His voice was hollow. Margaret, I don't know what to say. Then don't say anything. Come to the orientation meeting as planned. We have work to do. How can I work for you after what my family did? That depends. Do you want to make this about your family's failures, or do you want to focus on what's best for Harrington Industries? Silence. I've reviewed your company's operations, William. You've got good people, good products, and terrible strategy. With Global Tech's resources and leadership, Harrington Industries could double its revenue in 5 years. You'd still work with me after everything? I separate personal from business. I always have. What your wife and daughter did reflects on them, not necessarily on you. I laughed. At dinner, when Victoria made comments about you, I laughed. Yes, you did. I'm sorry. Thank you. But apologies without change are just words. Show me something different, William. Be someone different. Then we'll talk about forgiveness. He came to the meeting. Looked like he hadn't slept in days. But he came, and he listened. And over the following months, he proved to be exactly what I'd thought. A decent manager who needed guidance, not termination. Victoria and Vanessa had a harder time. Victoria tried to leverage her society connections for damage control, but discovered that the wealthy women she'd called friends were more interested in distancing themselves from scandal than supporting her. The invitations stopped coming. The charity board positions evaporated. The country club friends suddenly had scheduling conflicts. Vanessa tried to contact Derek repeatedly. Called, texted, showed up at his apartment, had her friends intervene on her behalf. He blocked her everywhere. The annulment went through quickly. Unconsummated marriage, mutual agreement. Eventually, after Vanessa realized she wasn't getting any money out of this, clean break. Derek Chen was a single man again, within 8 weeks. William's choice. 3 months after the wedding, William came to my office in San Jose. He'd been commuting from Connecticut, overseeing Harrington Industries' integration into Global Tech's manufacturing division. He looked tired, but he also looked lighter, somehow, like he'd set down a burden he didn't know he was carrying. Margaret, thank you for seeing me. Of course. What can I do for you? He sat down across from my desk. I want to talk about my future and my family's future. I'm listening. Victoria and I are divorcing. I hadn't expected that. I'm sorry to hear that. Are you? Divorce is always painful. Whatever else I think of Victoria, I know ending a marriage isn't easy. William nodded slowly. 33 years. We met in college, got married young, never questioned it. I thought we were happy. Or at least, I thought we were supposed to be happy, which I confused with actually being happy. What changed? The wedding. Not your revelation, although that was part of it. But watching my wife and daughter humiliate someone publicly, laugh about it, enjoy it. I realized I'd been watching them do that for years, to waiters, salespeople, employees, anyone they considered beneath them. I just never let myself see how ugly it was. Seeing clearly is the first step toward change. I've been in therapy 3 months, trying to understand how I became someone who laughed at another person's pain to fit in with my own family. And what have you figured out? That I was a coward, that I prioritized comfort over conscience, that I let my wife and daughter become cruel because stopping them would have meant conflict, and I hate conflict. Those are important realizations. I've also realized something about business. He leaned forward. Harrington Industries has been stagnant for 20 years, not because of the economy or the market or competition, because of me. Because I was afraid to take risks, afraid to innovate, afraid to do anything that might rock the boat. Go on. You're different. You built global tech from nothing, took risks that would have terrified me, made decisions that changed entire industries. I used to think that was recklessness. Now I think it's courage. It's both, actually. Recklessness without strategy fails. Courage without recklessness never tries. I want to learn from you, not as an employee protecting his position, as a student trying to become better. I studied him for a long moment. This wasn't what I'd expected from William Harrington. I'd expected defensiveness, excuses, maybe resignation. You understand that working closely with me means accepting feedback you won't like, changing habits you're comfortable with, being challenged in ways your family position never required. I understand. And you understand that your wife and daughter's actions have permanently affected how I see your family. That's not fair to you. You're not responsible for their choices, but it's the truth. I understand that too. Then let's try something. 6 months. I'll mentor you directly. If you show real growth, real change, we'll discuss a larger role in Global Tech's leadership. If not, you'll keep your current position with no hard feelings. William actually teared up. Thank you, Margaret. I won't let you down. Don't thank me yet. I'm a tough teacher. Vanessa's fall. While William was rebuilding, Vanessa was falling apart. I didn't seek this information out. I didn't need to. Word travels in business circles, and Vanessa's downward spiral was the kind of story people love to share. First, she lost her job. Not because of me. I'd specifically instructed our HR department to treat her fairly, but fairly meant performance reviews, accountability, showing up on time. Concepts Vanessa had never had to worry about when her father ran the company. She lasted 2 months before being terminated for cause. Missed deadlines, poor quality work, conflicts with colleagues. She'd never actually been good at her job. She'd just been protected. Then she lost her apartment. She'd been living in a luxury condo that Derek, I discovered after the fact, had been helping pay for. Without his support and without her salary, she couldn't make rent. She moved back in with her mother, into the Connecticut estate that had seemed so impressive when I first visited. Now it felt like a prison, 2 bitter women trapped together by circumstance. Victoria's divorce settlement was smaller than expected. William, with good legal counsel and documentation of Victoria's spending habits, had managed to negotiate terms that left her comfortable, but not wealthy. The estate was sold. The country club membership lapsed. The lifestyle Victoria had built her identity around crumbled. I heard about all of this secondhand, didn't seek it out, didn't celebrate it, didn't intervene in either direction. These were consequences, not revenge, natural results of choices made over years and decades. 6 months after the wedding, Vanessa sent me a letter, not email, an actual handwritten letter on expensive stationery that looked like it had come from better days. Dear Mrs. Chen, I know you probably won't read this. I know I don't deserve your attention after what I did, but I need to try. I've had a lot of time to think about that night, about what I said, about who I was, and I'm ashamed, truly, deeply ashamed. I was taught that wealth meant worth, that being rich made you better than people who weren't. My whole life, I was praised for things I didn't earn and protected from consequences I deserved. I thought that was normal. I thought I was special. I was wrong. You showed me something I'd never seen before, someone with real power who didn't use it to make others feel small, someone who could have destroyed my family, but instead gave my father a chance. Someone who earned everything she had and still dressed like a normal person, drove a normal car, treated regular people with respect. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I'm not asking you to help me or hire me or even acknowledge that I exist. I'm just asking, how do you become a person like you? How do you have everything and still remember what it means to have nothing? How do you not become what I became? I want to be better. I don't know how. Sincerely, Vanessa. I read the letter 3 times. Then I did something I hadn't expected to do. I replied, Vanessa, you asked how I stayed grounded despite success. The answer is simple. I never forgot where I came from. I grew up poor. Not comfortable, but modest poor. Actually poor. Food insecurity, eviction notices, wearing clothes until they fell apart. When you've been truly hungry, you never take meals for granted. When you've been truly powerless, you never abuse power casually. You didn't have that experience. Your challenge is to develop empathy without suffering. It's possible, but it requires intention. Here's what I suggest. Get a job, not a prestigious job, any job, retail, food service, entry level, something where you're not protected, where you have to deal with difficult people, where you're judged on your work and not your name. Do that for a year. Really do it. Don't tell anyone who your family is. Don't use connections. Just work. If you survive that year, if you come out the other side with respect for people who do those jobs forever, then you'll have the foundation you need to build something different. I don't forgive you. Not yet. But I don't wish you harm either. You have the opportunity to become someone better than you were raised to be. Most people never get that opportunity. Don't waste it. Margaret Chen. I don't know if she took my advice. That's not my story to follow. Derek's recovery. Anazu spent 6 months in a fog. Not depressed exactly. He kept working, kept functioning, kept doing all the things a person is supposed to do. But he was quieter than before, more cautious. The openness that had made him trust Vanessa was replaced by something harder. I worried about him, called more often, visited more often, tried to be present without smothering. One night, about 8 months after the wedding, he called me at 2 a.m. Mom, are you awake? I am now. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. I need to ask you something. Anything. How did you trust again? After Dad died? After losing the person you loved most? How did you ever let yourself be vulnerable again? I thought about the question carefully. I didn't. For a long time. I dated a few times, years after your father died, but I never let anyone really close. My heart belonged to him, and then it belonged to you and the company. There wasn't room for anyone else. Do you regret that? Sometimes. Lonely nights mostly. But I had a full life, had you. Had work that mattered. Had friends and family and purpose. Romantic love isn't the only love that counts. I don't want to be alone forever. You won't be. You're young, you're smart, you're kind. Someone will see that. Someone who doesn't care about my company or my money or any of it. How will I know? How will I trust myself to know? You won't, not completely. That's what love requires, a leap of faith. The best you can do is pay attention. Watch how people treat others. Watch what they do when they think no one's looking. And then, jump. I'm scared to jump. That's okay. Jump scared. It's allowed. He was quiet for a moment. Then, Mom, there's something else. What? There's someone at work. Her name is Rachel. She's been here 2 years. Software engineer. Really talented. We've been talking, grabbing coffee sometimes. Nothing serious, but you like her. I like her a lot, and it terrifies me. Does she know about me? About global tech? No, I haven't told anyone. After Vanessa, I couldn't. Derek, you can't start a relationship with that kind of secret hanging over it. If she finds out later, she'll wonder what else you're hiding. I know. But what if she changes? What if she becomes like Vanessa? Then you'll deal with it. But you can't protect yourself from pain by never taking risks. You'll just be trading one kind of suffering for another. Yeah, long pause. Would you meet her? Rachel? Before I tell her anything, I value your judgment. I'd be honored meeting. Rachel. Rachel Chen, no relation, flew to San Jose to meet me. Derek had told her only that his mother wanted to meet her, that it was important to him, that there were some family things he needed to discuss. She came to my house, the modest suburban home I'd lived in for 20 years, the one with the Honda in the driveway and the garden. I maintained myself. Rachel was not what I expected, not the polished, designer-clad beauty Vanessa had been. She showed up in jeans and a Stanford sweatshirt, hair in a ponytail, no makeup I could detect. Mrs. Chen, it's so nice to meet you. Derek talks about you all the time. Please, call me Margaret, and I hope he only says good things. She laughed. Natural laugh, not performed. Mostly how you're his hero, how you raised him alone, built a business from nothing, never stopped fighting. He's generous with praise. He's truthful. I've seen how hard it is to be a single parent and work full time. My mom did it. Not something you just survive. It's something you have to actively choose every single day. I invited her in. We sat in my modest living room, drank tea from mismatched mugs, talked about her background, first-generation Chinese-American, parents who ran a restaurant in Sacramento, her education, Stanford engineering, full scholarship, her career goals, technical leadership, maybe her own startup someday. She asked me about Derek, about what he was like as a child, about what I hoped for his future. I want him to be happy, I said, genuinely happy, not impressed with himself happy or successful on paper happy, deep down in his heart, at peace with who he is. That's all. That's everything. She nodded slowly. My parents say the same thing. They worked 80 hours a week so I could go to good schools, and all they want is for me to find someone who makes me smile. Have you found that? Rachel blushed. I think I might have. Derek he's different from anyone I've dated before. He's kind without being weak. He's ambitious without being ruthless. He's smart, but he never makes me feel stupid. And you really like him for him, not for what he can provide or where he can take you. I don't even know what he could provide. I know he has a good job, but we don't talk about money. I know he grew up in California, but I don't know anything about his family's finances. For all I know, he has massive student debt and this house is mortgaged to the ceiling. She gestured around my modest living room. Would it matter if he did have massive debt? Not to me. I've got my own student loans. We'd figure it out together. I decided I liked her, really liked her. Not because she said the right things. Anyone can do that. But because she seemed to mean them. There was no performance, no calculation, no awareness that she was being evaluated. Rachel, there's something you need to know about Derek's family situation. Okay. I took a breath. I'm not just a small business owner. I'm Margaret Chen, CEO of Global Tech Solutions. The company is worth over $2 billion. Derek is my only heir. Rachel's face went through several expressions: confusion, disbelief, suspicion, and finally, unexpectedly, concern. Are you joking? I'm not. Global Tech. Like Global Tech, the technology company? That's been in the news? That's the one. Derek is a billionaire's son and he works as a software engineer. He wanted to build his own career, didn't want people treating him differently because of me. Rachel sat back. Well, that explains a few things. Like what? Like why he never wanted to talk about his family. Like why he got weird when I mentioned I'd seen something about global tech in the news. Like why he seemed almost embarrassed when I asked if his mom had built a successful consulting practice. He was protecting himself and testing you, I suppose, though he would never admit that. Testing me. Derek's last relationship ended badly, very badly. His ex-fiancée only cared about status and money. When she found out the truth about our family's wealth, she didn't handle it well. I gave her an abbreviated version of the wedding story. Her eyes got wider with each detail. She called you what? At the wedding? Old fat pig. To 300 guests. Oh my God. Rachel looked horrified. And Derek still married her? The marriage lasted about 4 hours before he asked for an annulment. Good for him. She shook her head. No wonder he's been so careful. No wonder he didn't tell me. He must be terrified I'll turn out like her. Will you? What? No. I mean, I'm not saying this because you're rich. I'm saying it because I'm not a terrible person. But money doesn't change who you are. It just makes you more of what you already were. That's very wise. My grandmother used to say that. She also said, rich people's problems are still problems. They just have better shoes. I never totally understood that one. I laughed. Actually laughed for what felt like the first time in months. I like you, Rachel. I like you too. You're nothing like what I expected. What did you expect? I don't know, someone more imposing? You're Derek's mom. You make tea in a regular kitchen. You have a Honda in the driveway. You're normal. I try to be. The money can make you crazy if you let it. It can make you think you're better than everyone else, that your opinion matters more, that you deserve special treatment. I've seen it destroy people. Like Derek's ex. Like a lot of people. Rachel was quiet for a moment. So what happens now? Am I supposed to prove something? Pass some test? No tests. I just wanted to meet you, to see who my son was considering trusting with his heart. And your verdict? I think Derek is lucky to have found you, and I think you should know that his family wealth doesn't change who he is. He's still the man you've been getting to know. The money is circumstance, not character. I know that, Rachel smiled. I fell for him before I knew any of this. Finding out he's secretly rich doesn't change what I feel. It just means I have to update some assumptions. What kind of assumptions? Like, I assumed we'd split the check on our first date because that's what normal people do. Now I realize he was probably being considerate of my finances, not his. It's actually kind of sweet. He gets that from his father? Tell me about him. Derek's father? He never talks about it. So I told her about James, about our love story, about building a life together and losing him too soon. Rachel listened without interrupting, tears streaming down her face by the end. I'm so sorry, Mrs. Chen. I mean, Margaret, I can't imagine. It was a long time ago. The pain fades, the love doesn't. Derek should hear this. He should hear how you talk about his father. Maybe you can help him ask. He's been so closed off since the wedding, so afraid of being hurt again. I'll try. Rachel wiped her eyes. I'll try to be patient, to be steady, to show him that not everyone leaves and not everyone changes. That's all any of us can do. 1 year later, on the anniversary of the disastrous wedding, I found myself in a very different place. Not physically. I was still in San Jose, still running global tech, still driving my Honda and shopping at Costco. But emotionally, Spiritually, everything had shifted. Derek was happy, really, genuinely happy. He and Rachel had been together for 10 months, living together for 3. They had a dog named Pixel who was thoroughly spoiled. They had game nights with friends, weekend hikes, Sunday brunches with me when their schedules allowed. Rachel had adjusted to the wealth situation with remarkable grace. She still worked her software engineering job, still paid her share of expenses from her own salary, still refused to let Derek buy her expensive things just because he could. "I didn't fall in love with a billionaire," she'd told me once. "I fell in love with Derek. The money is his thing, not mine." William Harrington had transformed, not completely. Years of habits don't disappear overnight, but meaningfully. He'd completed my mentorship program, impressed me with his willingness to learn, and earned a promotion to lead Global Tech's entire manufacturing division. More importantly, he'd become a decent human being. He volunteered at a local food bank on weekends. He mentored young professionals from disadvantaged backgrounds. He called his ex-wife on her birthday and wished her well without bitterness. "You gave me something I didn't know I needed," he told me at his promotion celebration. "Permission to be someone other than who my family expected." Victoria and Vanessa had faded from my awareness. I heard occasional updates through William. Victoria was living in a small apartment in Connecticut, maintaining what social connections she could. Vanessa had taken my advice about working retail, lasted 4 months, and was now in community college studying to be a paralegal. Progress, maybe, or just different circumstances. I no longer cared enough to monitor. The video of the wedding confrontation still circulated online occasionally. Someone would discover it. It would go viral again briefly, then fade. Each time it resurfaced, I got interview requests, book deal offers, speaking engagement invitations. I declined them all. "The story isn't about revenge," I told my PR team when they pushed me to capitalize on the attention. "It's about dignity, and dignity doesn't do podcast tours." The proposal. Derek called me on a Tuesday evening, voice shaking like it had been the day before his first wedding. "Mom, I need to tell you something." "What is it, honey?" "I'm going to propose to Rachel. This weekend, I have a ring and a plan, and I'm going to ask her to marry me." My heart swelled. "Oh, Derek, that's wonderful." "I'm terrified, Mom. Last time I proposed to someone, it ended with my mother being called a pig in front of 300 people. Rachel isn't Vanessa. I know. But what if I'm wrong again? What if I'm not seeing something? What if—" "Derek, take a breath." He did. I could hear him calming himself on the other end of the line. "Now tell me, does Rachel make you happy?" "Yes, more than I've ever been." "Does she treat other people, not just you, but waiters and clerks and strangers, with respect?" "Always. She's the kindest person I know." "Does she care about your money?" "She's annoyed by it, actually. She keeps trying to pay for things with her own credit card and getting frustrated when I won't let her." "And when you imagine your future, is she in it?" "Every version, Mom. Every future I want has Rachel in it." "Then you have your answer. Stop being terrified and go get your happy ending." "Will you come? When I do it? I want you there. I want you to see." "I wouldn't miss it." The proposal happened at sunset on a beach in Santa Cruz, the same beach where I'd taken Derek as a child, where James and I had spent our honeymoon, where 4 generations of happiness had been built on sand and salt air. Derek had arranged everything beautifully: a private section of beach, a violinist playing softly, a blanket with champagne and strawberries. Rachel had no idea. She thought they were having a picnic. I watched from a distance, far enough to give them privacy, close enough to see their faces. Derek went down on one knee. Rachel's hands flew to her mouth. I couldn't hear the words, but I didn't need to. She said yes. Obviously, she said yes. They embraced, laughed, cried, and finally noticed me standing there with my phone camera running. Mom, you knew. I knew, I admitted, joining them. And I wanted to be here to see my son finally get the happy ending he deserves. Rachel hugged me, her face wet with tears. Thank you. Thank you for raising him. Thank you for being you. Thank you for loving him. Really loving him. That's all I ever wanted. A different kind of wedding. The second wedding was nothing like the first. Instead of the Waldorf Grand Ballroom, they chose a botanical garden in Oakland. Instead of 300 strategic social connections, they invited 50 people who actually mattered. Real friends, real family, real relationships. Rachel's parents came from Sacramento, still somewhat shell-shocked by the wealth disparity, but handling it with grace. Her father pulled me aside at the rehearsal dinner. Mrs. Chen, Margaret, I have to tell you something. Of course. When Rachel told us about Derek's family money, I was worried. Not because of the money itself, but because, well, rich people can be. He struggled for words. I know what they can be. Trust me, I've seen it. But you're not like that. You're normal. You sat in my restaurant last month and ate my wife's cooking and washed dishes afterward. You didn't act like you were doing us a favor by being there. I wasn't doing you a favor. You raised an extraordinary daughter who makes my son happy. I should be thanking you. He teared up. Thank you for saying that. Thank you for sharing her with us. The wedding itself was perfect, not because of expensive flowers or celebrity bakers, because of the love in the room. Every person there genuinely wanted to be there. Every smile was real. Every tear was earned. Derek looked at Rachel the way James used to look at me, like she was the most important thing in the universe, like nothing else mattered as long as they were together. When the officiant asked if anyone objected, I found myself holding my breath, waiting for some disaster, some intrusion, some repetition of the humiliation from a year before. Nothing happened. The ceremony continued. Vows were exchanged. Rings were given. The officiant pronounced them husband and wife. Derek kissed his bride, and 50 people applauded with genuine joy. No one called anyone a pig. No one revealed secret corporate connections. No one's life fell apart. Just love. Simple, honest, real love. At the reception, Derek pulled me aside. Mom, thank you. For what? For everything. For raising me right. For being honest when I needed it and supportive when I didn't. For not saying, I told you so about Vanessa, even though you easily could have. I never wanted to say that. I just wanted you to be happy. I am. Mom, I really am. I know, honey. I can see it. Do you think Dad would approve of Rachel? Your father would have loved her. He always said he wanted you to find someone who challenged you, someone who made you better, someone who saw you clearly and loved what she saw. Rachel does all of that. Then yes, he would have approved. Derek hugged me. Not a brief social hug, a real embrace, the kind he'd given me after James's funeral, the kind that said everything words couldn't. I love you, Mom. I love you too, honey. Now go dance with your wife. Reflection. I think about that first wedding sometimes, about Vanessa's sneer and Victoria's cruelty, and the moment when William recognized me and everything changed. I think about what I could have done differently. Could have told Derek the truth from the beginning, spared everyone the drama. Could have warned him more explicitly about Vanessa's character, trusted him to believe me. Could have revealed myself sooner before the humiliation became public spectacle. But I don't regret my choices. Not really. Because sometimes people need to see clearly for themselves. Derek needed to hear Vanessa's contempt with his own ears, not filtered through my protective maternal instincts. He needed to understand exactly who she was before he could fully let go, and the Harringtons needed consequences, not revenge. I never wanted revenge, but consequences, natural results of their own choices. They'd spent decades treating lesser people with contempt, confident that their wealth protected them from repercussions. That confidence was broken, not by my wealth or my power, by their own cruelty, witnessed by hundreds of people, documented for the internet forever. They destroyed themselves. I just stopped protecting them from it. There's a lesson in that, I think, about karma, about the long game, about the fact that character eventually reveals itself, and when it does, all the money in the world can't buy it back. Epilogue. 5 years later. I'm 63 now, semi-retired from global tech, though I still serve on the board and advise on strategy when they ask. The company is worth $4 billion, led by a CEO I trained and trust completely. Derek and Rachel have twin girls, Eleanor and James, one named for my mother, one for Derek's father. They're 3 years old, full of chaos and joy, and I spend every moment I can with them. Rachel insisted on going back to work after maternity leave. My daughters will know that women can have careers, she said. They'll see their mother and their grandmother building things that matter. I couldn't argue with that. William Harrington retired last year. He's living in a small house in Vermont, volunteering with Habitat for Humanity, dating a woman he met at a community garden. He sends me Christmas cards with handwritten notes about gratitude and second chances. Victoria moved to Florida. I hear she's involved with a church group, which seems either like growth or like a new social hierarchy to climb. I choose to believe the former. Vanessa finished her paralegal certification. She works for a legal aid organization helping people who can't afford lawyers. According to William, she's genuinely changed, humbled by experience, focused on helping others. Nothing like the cruel socialite who called me a pig at her wedding. I hope that's true. I hope she found the person she was capable of becoming. As for me, I wake up every morning in my modest house with my Honda in the driveway and my garden that needs tending. I drink coffee from mismatched mugs. I wear comfortable clothes. I live a life that looks exactly like it did when I was poor, except now I could buy the whole neighborhood if I wanted to. But I don't want to. I never wanted that. I wanted what money can't buy, respect earned through character, not net worth, love given freely, not purchased, family built on trust, not transactions. I have all of that now. Derek is happy. My granddaughters are healthy. My company thrives under good leadership. My life is full of people who love me for who I am, not what I have. That's the real revenge, if you want to call it that. Not destroying the Harringtons. They did that themselves, not proving I was richer than them. Money was never the point. The revenge was being happy, genuinely, deeply, completely happy. Vanessa called me a pig, said I was something her family had to put up with, treated me like I was worthless because I didn't look wealthy. Now she's working as a paralegal for legal aid, and I'm a billionaire grandmother dancing with my twin granddaughters in a garden I planted myself. Character wins. Every time. It just takes a while. So if this story made you think twice about judging someone by their appearance, or made you reconsider how you treat people who can't fight back, hit like and subscribe, because I've got more stories. Stories about families who confused wealth with worth. Stories about people who learned the hard way that money doesn't make you better. Stories about karma, consequences, and the long game. Spoiler alert, character always reveals itself eventually. And when it does, no amount of money can buy it back.